Hello everybody and welcome back for another weapon video for the Edge of Fate. I don't know why I'm saying it like this. Help me. We're going to talk about the Giver's Blessing today, which has quickly become maybe my favorite auto rifle in the game. I was a diehard Chroma Rish stan. If you watched that video about Chroma Rish, I swooned for that thing. Giver's Blessing is a lot like Chroma Rish. It is a Kinetic 720 auto. It has the all-important kinetic tremors. And it has maybe a better overall perk selection. But ultimately, it still has, just a handful of things I would actually recommend to use on it. I want to first really tackle the origin trait on this thing because it is interesting. And by interesting, I mean it's kind of weird. So the origin trait on the Giver's Blessing is exhaustive research. Aiming down sights at a target for a short time loads a homing micro rocket. My first instinct when I saw this was, hey, we're going to get something like Neomuna. I loved the origin trait of firing that rocket every so many shots. This is not that. And in fact, I think in most ways it's much worse. Ideally, in the future, when I'll be able to get one of these with an enhanced origin trait, I'll be able to see if the time to activate it improves, but it takes, I feel, a slightly unreasonable amount of time to activate. It is ultimately not a terribly long time. As you're going to see in the footage here, it is not some, dreadfully excessive amount of time to activate. But when I'm in a firefight, if it's taking a no distractions amount of time to proc for one single rocket, and then there's this awkward delay between when the rocket fires and when I can start firing my weapon, it creates friction. And friction is the last thing you want between you and firing your weapon. The rocket does fine damage. As you can see on the ogre in the footage here, it's doing okay. About 357 is going to be the peak damage. What's weird though is that I'm getting that peak damage when I'm aiming at non-crits. So whenever I aim at a crit, it seems to be doing less damage. And I don't know if it's just something with how it's interacting with the model. Maybe it's just not proccing correctly off of crits. Maybe it's designed not to, because it's designed maybe not to crit, it's doing reduced damage when it goes in for a crit. So definitely aim elsewhere. But the weird thing too is that when you aim away from the crit, what does the rocket seem to want to do? Except go to the crit. And it does all the damage, so I can't really complain. It's doing, again, decent damage. It's not nothing. But in the time it takes to charge that rocket, fire that rocket, I could already be proccing kinetic tremors, which is going to ultimately do more damage for me. And this origin trait is just something I forget is really active on the gun. It's really the only, kind of gripe I have with it is that the origin trait is kind of like a nothing burger kind of thing. It's there, and I rarely interact with it because to do so, I have to use the gun in a way that feels kind of unnatural. Short of, if it had one of those perks, you're not going to have no distractions on an auto rifle. I understand that, and I'm not asking for that. But short of having a perk in, column 3 or column 4 that's going to utilize that time effectively, the origin trait is not worth it when I could be proccing kinetic tremors, when I could be shooting ads and getting, one for all going, something like that. And so it's just there. I would never advertise this thing. I would never say this weapon is incredible because of the origin trait. I will never say that. And hopefully in the future when we get that enhanced version of that origin trait. Ideally, that takes that time down and reduces some of that friction. Now, we've already talked a lot about fourth column perks, and so the top two that I recommend here, Kinetic Tremors is number one. Kinetic Tremors is such a great kinetic perk. It dabbles in ad clear, it's consistent damage, it's something that with this particular weapon you can continue to proc. It's very effective on 720s, it feels really good. I am a huge fan of Kinetic Tremors on almost any weapon that can get it, and this is among the best. And so if you want, if you were a big fan of like Chroma Rush in the past, and you wanted a modern weapon that's going to be able to take advantage of the tier system, Giver's Blessing isn't just your only option, it is a damn good one. So grateful for that. One for All is a tried and true option, and on an auto rifle like this, I feel it is a lot easier to proc because of the deeper magazine. You can kind of fan the room a little more effectively, and it becomes very easy to activate. And so One for All is a great damage option, either if you don't get Kinetic Tremors, or if you just prefer, killing your ads with your bullets, then by all means. Because of the deeper magazine, multi-kill clip is kind of an option here, and it's up to a 50% damage buff when you have 3 stacks of multi-kill clip. So that is technically the highest damage perk on this particular weapon. So if you don't mind, reloading and going through that, again, wow, massive inconvenience. I understand that's not what's happening. But if you want that and damage is your top priority, 2 times multi-kill clip is almost the same buff as One for All. And again, 3 times is a 50% damage buff. So you're looking at one of the higher damage dealing autos in the game, and especially at its fire rate, you can't really go wrong. And then kind of bringing in third column a little bit with this one, you do have the tried and true Demolitionist and Adrenaline Junkie, and Demolitionist is a lot better these days if you are building into the grenade stat, because it does work off of the grenade stat. So having, that additional scaler can actually make Demolitionist a better perk, and that makes Adrenaline Junkie a better perk, because if you're getting your grenade back faster, both through recharge and through Demolitionist, you're going to have greater uptime on Adrenaline Junkie. And again, you're looking at a 33% damage increase plus 20 handling, which can be a benefit for Giver's Blessing, because handling is one of its lower stats. As far as other third column perks, my kind of surprise favorite here has been Rewind rounds. And I have historically not been huge on Rewind on primaries, but with the way with the direction that the game is going, there is something to be said about having a weapon that can quickly shift between targets, and Subsistence does this. But Rewind does it in a different way. When I was in the contest raid, I was using Giver's Blessing consistently. And what was really nice is when ads were spawning in, I was going through an entire room of ads, some shielded, some not. It didn't really matter. Proccing Kinetic Tremors, continuing to go around the room, and in about 2 reloads, I could clear an entire zone in the Wyvern boss. And I'm not just talking when 4 Harpies spawn in. I'm talking when you get those larger waves, when the Minotaurs are spawning, when you start shooting the towers and things like that. You're able to clear an entire room of that with a mag and a half, multiple Kinetic Tremors proccing. Again, Subsistence can do that, but Rewind does it more consistently against stronger enemies, and that's kind of the trade-off you're getting with Giver's Blessing. And for me, it's worked. I've really enjoyed the gimmick. The footage that you're going to see here today, at least in the raw gameplay and the solo ops, isn't going to show that, because those ads are going to die very quickly, and that's kind of the trade-off. In a situation where you're mowing through ads, Subsistence is universally the better option, because you're going to get full mags more frequently, you're going to keep that weapon firing. When it comes to more difficult content, and as we start getting into higher tiered content, Rewind, I think, is ultimately going to be the better pick. And Rewind is, again, I'm talking about Subsistence. Rewind is the only option of the 2 that is available on this weapon. Chroma had Subsistence. this has rewind, and ultimately I think rewind is going to be better for this era of Destiny as we get into more difficult content. The other perk that I'm really looking at in third column, other than demo, which we already talked about, is impromptu ammunition, which is a new perk. Final blows increase ammo meter progress from all sources for a short time. Giver's Blessing is a generally good weapon at ammo generation at a base 57. So you're going to be generating ammo more frequently with this weapon. And having impromptu ammunition means that when you're defeating adds with this weapon, you're going to be generating even more ammo. And in, again, this new era of Destiny where you're kind of on your own with regard to generating ammo, and with ammo kind of being in the situation that it's in right now, it's always a benefit to be able to generate more, whether it's special, whether it's heavy. This combined with a lot of the ammunition perks that you can put on, or excuse me, mods that you can put on your armor, means that you're going to be generating a lot of ammo. Again, in the contest raid, one thing I was never short on was ammo, and I was using this gun to do that. Combined with things like heavy ammo finder, combined with the kinetic generation mod on the chest armor. Those things combined meant I was getting consistently a lot of ammo. And when you're building into your weapon trait, you're going to get larger bricks, which means you're going to get more ammo per pickup. When you run scavs, you're going to be getting even more. And so there's a lot of ways to build into the new systems, and this perk will allow you to do that with ammo generation. Of course, shoot to loot is another great alternative for that, and especially in higher end content, that's going to be a great option for getting your hands on that ammo. During a damage phase, being able to shoot, a brick that's off in the distance and be able to fire a little more Thunderlord, a little more Lord of Wolves, whatever the case may be, that's going to always be a good kind of neutral game perk. Personally, again, I'm looking at rewind number 1, and then, take your pick based on how you want to build, whether weapons, whether you want to build grenade, or you want to have a solid neutral game. The other thing that's worth noting with Giver's Blessing is, similar to the Ahab and similar to the Chroma Rush, at base stats, this thing just kind of works. It's great. It doesn't feel like a weapon that's getting away from me when I'm using it. It feels really solid. So I haven't, again, had the need to change that base recoil direction. My particular version of this weapon does have a 67 because I do have chambered compensator. But I have used base models of this weapon when I was testing One for All, and I noticed very little difference. I do appreciate having higher stability on this weapon. I currently have a 63 on my roll, and that has felt really good. So I would maybe consider any fast-firing weapon always benefits from a little more stability. And so if you're going to target a particular stat on this, I would prioritize stability, followed then by either range or handling, depending on personal preference. At a base, this weapon, a rapid fire auto is not going to be your longest range friend, though you can see in the firing range footage, I am dealing with enemies at long range. Same thing with the Ahab. Anything really in that 40 meter kind of range, you're not going to have any problems dealing with. Anything beyond that, you're probably using a more specialized weapon, or you're just kind of plinking. So that's not really going to matter. Even if you add another 10 range, for example, you're not really moving that needle as much as you think you are in PvE. If you're going to run it in PvP, that's a different story because you're going to get some better, aim assist, things like that. Those values are going to be better if you run this in PvP. For what it's worth, if you are thinking about bringing this weapon into PvP, this does have best-in-class aim assist, even higher than Chroma Rush, which was already at 80 aim assist. This is at an 84 baseline. So if you are looking for a 720 auto to bring into PvP, the aim assist value alone makes it more viable than some other options. And, you do have perks like Zen Moment, you do have perks like Moving Target, which you can make work. It's a little more limited, I would say, for PvP. It doesn't have a lot of the perks that you're really looking for in the Crucible, but you can definitely make do. And maybe that rocket ends up being really good in PvP, who knows. thank you guys so much for watching this one. I really appreciate all the support you guys have shown for the Ahab video. I'm going to try and get these out a little bit quicker and try and get a few videos out a week so you guys can kind of see what's going on with these new guns. Please, keep providing the feedback. If you guys have ideas for something I missed on a weapon, I am always welcome to feedback. I can always improve the ways that I am looking at these guns, testing these guns. I don't claim to be a professional. I don't claim to be the de facto source of, knowledge on all of these weapons. I can always do better, and your guys' feedback really does help a lot with that. And, please continue to like and subscribe. That stuff means so much to me. You have no idea. And I will catch you on the next video. Bye-bye.